I was 69 the year everything in my family broke open. And I suppose the strangest part is how quietly it started. Not with a fight or an argument or some dramatic scene the neighbors could overhear, but with a Sunday morning birthday and a chair I didn't ask for. Most women my age wake up on their 70th birthday with a phone full of messages from old friends and children who remember out of courtesy. I woke up to silence. Not a call, not a text, not a voice note. Just the kettle rattling softly on the stove as it boiled, and the familiar creak of my old building settling in the heat. I didn't expect much. I stopped expecting years ago. My son Daniel and his wife Carla had trained me out of hoping for anything that wasn't scheduled weeks in advance. But a small, ridiculous part of me still wondered if the day might feel special. It didn't. I made tea. I shuffled around in my slippers. I watched dust float through the sunbeam coming in from the window. That was all. Then, near noon, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, there were my grandkids, Lily and Ben, bundled in coats, cheeks red from the cold, eyes shining with effort and excitement. Behind them, 2 delivery men were struggling to haul a massive cardboard box up the stairs. And when I say massive, I mean the kind of box you could hide a refrigerator inside. "Happy birthday, Grandma!" Lily squealed before I even managed to say hello. She flung her arms around me so tightly I almost dropped the mug in my hand. Ben, quieter but no less proud, nodded toward the box. "We, got you something." "Got me something?" I blinked. "Sweetheart, did you 2 wrap a small car?" They exchanged a look that made my stomach flip. Not fear, excitement mixed with guilt. The kind of guilt that only comes from spending far too much money. The delivery men maneuvered the box inside. Printed on the side was a picture of a huge massage recliner. Dark leather, cup holders, warming pads, the whole thing. It looked like it belonged in the lobby of a fancy hotel, not my tiny 4th-floor apartment. "Lily," Ben, core voice faltered. "Kids, what did you do?" Lily's answer was almost a whisper. "We saved up." Saved up. Those 2 teenagers, a part-time car wash boy and a neighborhood tutor, had somehow pulled together nearly $8,000. For me. For a 70-year-old woman who spent her days drinking tea and rubbing ointment into her back. I should have told them it was too much. I should have scolded them and made them return it. But instead, my throat closed and the tears came fast, the embarrassing kind, with hiccups and shaking hands. Ben shifted from foot to foot, trying to look older than 15. "You always say your back hurts, Grandma, and your legs, and the wooden chair you have, well, it's a torture device." Lily nodded eagerly. "We wanted you to have something big, something you'd never buy for yourself." I pulled them both into my arms. "You two, you didn't have to do this." "But we wanted to," Lily said. "You're always doing things for us. You never do anything for yourself. So we did." I swear I could have lived another 20 years on the feeling that gave me. Daniel, my son, stood in the kitchen doorway. His smile was thin and nervous, the sort of expression a person wears when they don't want to upset anyone, but don't know how to help either. His shoulders slumped the way they always did, like he was bracing for someone else's reaction. That someone else, of course, was Carla.
Carla, who walked into my home half an hour later with grocery bags and a phone pressed to her ear, and froze mid-sentence when she saw the box open, the leather chair gleaming in my living room. "Hold on, Mom," she said into the phone, her voice dropping. "I'll call you back." She hung up slowly, eyes narrowing like she'd just spotted something suspicious. "What," she said, "is that?" Lily looked at me nervously. Ben stopped pretending to be suave and straightened like he was waiting for impact. "It's Grandma's birthday present," Lily said carefully. "A massage chair," Daniel added. "The kids saved up." "The kids," Carla repeated, her tone stretching the word until it snapped. She walked over and placed her hand on the leather like it personally offended her. "How much?" Lily subconscious. "Ben's boss gave him a discount. It was $7,900. Carla's eyebrows shot up. For a moment, she didn't discern or blink. Then speaking at a surf exhale through her nose. "Oh, wonderful," she said. "Amazing. Perfect. Just what you need." She paced around the chair, inspected it as if she were a mechanic diagnosing a broken car. "Carla," I started gently, "the kids meant well." "Oh, I'm sure the dating. But Margating, be serious. You doing this? This is excessive for you." Ben sickened. "It's not excessive." Carla ignored him. She waking at me again, that polished, polite 6-6 steamwork sending words when she wanted to steam far worse than yours. She has actual medical issues. Her tooth recommended a proper recliner months ago, but speaking about one. Meanwhile, you better leave your kitchen chair.
I opened my mouth, but Carla continued. "Let's be reasonable. The kids made a sweet gesture, but they didn't think. This chair should go to someone who truly needs it." Lily's voice broke. "We bought it for Grandma." "And she can still have a nice chair," Carla said. "A simple, affordable one that fits her home, not this spaceship." She bent down and unplugged the chair. Just like that. No pause, no shame, no asking. "Daniel," she said, "help me get this into the SUV." Daniel hesitated for half a second, then followed her without a word. That's the problem with quiet men. Their silence helps the loud ones win. "Stop," Lily whispered. "Mom, please. It's Grandma's birthday." "It's wasteful," Carla snapped. "Your grandmother is old. She doesn't need expensive gadgets." Old. That word always landed like a slap. I should have spoken up. I should have yelled or blocked the door or defended myself. But when you spend decades keeping the peace, your instincts betray you. You go still. You go quiet. You freeze because conflict feels dangerous. So I stood there, helpless, while they lifted the chair, my chair, my grandchildren's sacrifice, and rolled it right out of my front door. As they secured it in the back of the SUV, Carla called out, "Don't worry, Margaret. We'll get you something more appropriate." More appropriate. Something cheap, something small, something that didn't make her feel threatened. The trunk slammed shut. The SUV backed out of the parking space. The taillights glowed red as it drove away. Lily pressed her face into my arm. Ben clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. And I stood there thinking one thought so sharp it cut through my fear. If she can roll a $7,000 gift out of my life this easily, what else does she think she can move out? That was the first moment I understood she wasn't just taking a chair. She was preparing to take me. That night, Long after the chair was gone and the house was quiet again, the three of us sat at my kitchen table with mugs of hot chocolate cupped in our hands. The steam curled upward in soft, white wisps, but none of us drank. The room felt hollow, like the warmth had been dragged out along with that chair. Lily stared at the table. "We saved for months," she whispered. "I babysat every weekend. Ben worked in the snow. We planned it all, and she just took it." Ben's jaw tightened the way Daniel's used to when he was a boy, when he wanted to speak but feared the reaction. "Grandma," he said quietly, "was she right? Do you not need something like that?" I looked at their faces, young, hopeful, breaking, and for the first time that day, I felt my spine stiffen. "She wasn't right," I said. "But she said what made things easier for her, not what was true." They stayed silent, absorbing that. Children always know when something is wrong in a house, even when adults pretend otherwise. Lily wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater. "She does this all the time," she said. "Even when she sounds nice, she's not really being nice." I had spent years biting my tongue to keep the peace. But peace only ever existed on the one side that stayed silent. And suddenly, I realized how much damage that silence had done. To me, to them, to Daniel. "Kids," I said softly, "listen to me. If someone steals something from you and tells you it's for your own good, they're lying." Their eyes lifted. "She didn't take that chair for my sake," I continued. "She took it because she wanted it, and because she thinks she can take anything from me." Ben clenched his fists again. Lily pressed her lips together so tightly they turned white. "But that's over now," I told them. "I promise you, that was the last time she takes anything from me." They didn't know what I meant. To be honest, I didn't fully know either. All I knew was something had cracked inside me. The part that always stayed quiet. The part that always forgave too fast. The part that always swallowed the hurt. That part wasn't coming back. After they left, I washed the mugs, turned off the kitchen light, and walked into my small bedroom. My knees ached, my back throbbed, and the quiet pressed against my ears so heavily that it felt like the walls were leaning in. I opened the bottom drawer of my dresser, the one most people would expect to find old photos or scarves in, and pulled out a thick brown folder I'd kept tucked away for years. Inside were decades of papers, receipts for school trips I'd paid for, loans I'd given Daniel when he and Carla needed help, payments for appliances, for car repairs, for emergencies that always seemed to arrive around the same weekend trips Carla posted online. 6,000 here, 3,000 there. Constant small requests stitched together like a quilt made of guilt.
I spread the papers across my bed, one by one, until the entire thing was layered with proof of how much I'd given, how much I'd allowed, how much I had excused. But the important thing wasn't the money. It was the pattern. Every request had Carla's tone behind it. Sweet when she wanted something, sharp when she didn't get it, and guilt-laced in between. And every time I had given in. Because I wanted Daniel to be happy. Because I wanted the kids to have things. Because I wanted the peace I never had in my own marriage. But as I looked at those papers, I saw the truth clearly for the first time. I wasn't helping. I was enabling. And by enabling them, I was teaching them to see me not as a mother or grandmother, but as a resource, a quietly bleeding wallet with weak knees and no boundaries. I sat there until my back hurt too much to stay on the bed. Then I gathered every paper, tucked them neatly into the folder again, and made a decision I never thought I'd make.
I was going to protect myself for once. The next morning, I knocked on my neighbor's door. Mrs. Patel had lived across the hall from me for 22 years. She had kind eyes and the sort of quiet strength that comes from raising children, burying a husband, and working long past the age most people retire. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and didn't hesitate. "Come in," she said. "Sit. Tell me." I sat at her kitchen table while she brewed chai, the real kind with cardamom and ginger. When these placed the cup in front of me, the warmth almost made me cry again. "What named?" she asked gently. I told her everything. The birthday, the chair, the way Carla took it, the way Daniel shrank, the kids' heartbreak, the folder of receipts, the science that had stretched across years. Mrs. Patel didn't interrupt once. She simply listened, her bat getting tighter with each detail. When I finished, she reached into a drawer and pulled out a business card. Crisp, white, simple. "My niece," she said. "Elder law attorney. She handles cases where families try to control older relatives or take their assets. You're not the first woman who's gone through this." My favorites shook as it tops the card. "Call her," Mrs. Patel said. "It's time." Normally, I would have tucked that card away, told myself I didn't want to make trouble, and convinced myself everything would fix itself if my subsidies. But things don't fix themselves when polite people are being stepped on. Despised, so I called. Her waking wisdom, no-nonsense energy. She told me to come to her office that same week. When the day came, I sat outside her building for 10 minutes before gathering the courage to photo in. I fork ridiculous. A grown woman nervous about asking for help, nervous about protecting what was already born. But when I finally sat in her office and handed her the brown folder, she went through every page with clinical convict. When teachers, she closed the folder and looked at me with a kind of heavy secrets. "Margaret," she said, "this evident looking that your cyber. This of pattern of Virginia manipulism, possibly abuse. Exposing." The words hit blue working. Women with custos. Slammed doors, the mini stolen for alcohol. Plays of Alex and voting and corporate here I was. Because here I need to asking your upside about one braced myself. Ask. Are you prepared for your son to bangry with you? For your doctor-in-law to turn the sports around and talk you of the part? Because when words to pretend you not down what these working doing. Writing that sock in. Prepared? I talking of Lily's face watching the chair, of Ben's studies, clenched disputes ahead, anger, of today's such the skin, doubts the tax idols covering dating boned. I've already lost their respect by nervous dating. Is saying quietly, if I'm so be it. Elena, someone 59, could begin to cover walked me through your exposing. Every mistake, every transfer record, every text message where coaches proactive me to looking help out just this once. Thomas ownership of my condo into a tax, a pedal cell to discourage my home me a trustee's apport today.
Carla will come back, Elena said. She will try again, gently at first, then more aggressively. I want you to let her talk. Let her incriminate herself. You won't need to confront her. Just record what she says. You're legally allowed to record conversations in your own home. A knot formed in my stomach. Isn't that deceitful? I asked. Elena shook her head. It's protection. She's already planning something. You're not tricking her. You're documenting her. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone. The next step came faster than either of us expected. 3 weeks after the chair incident, Daniel called. There was tension in his voice, the kind that comes when someone rehearsed words before dialing. "Mom," he said, hesitating, "Carla wants us to have you over for dinner on Saturday. She says we need to talk about your future."
That word again, future, always code for control. "How thoughtful," I said. "It's just, you live alone, Mom, and your building has no elevator. Carla's worried. We both are." He meant well. Or maybe he didn't know what he meant anymore. Fear changes people. Carla changed him. "I'll be there," I said, and I meant it. But I also slipped Elena's recorder into the pocket of my cardigan before leaving the house. Their home looked immaculate, as always. Picture perfect on the outside, brittle underneath. Carla greeted me at the door with a too sweet hug, the kind that says she's already decided the outcome. Dinner was polite and hollow. Forced smiles, small talk, Daniel tapping his foot under the table, Carla watching my reactions like a hawk. The moment the plates were cleared, she folded her hands neatly and gave me the look. The managerial smile of someone about to make a presentation. "Margaret," she began, "we're worried about you." I nodded slowly. Here it comes. "You live alone," she said. "Your knees, your back. It's getting harder for you to manage things. We've been looking into a wonderful senior residence. Very clean, very safe, nurses on staff, daily activities. You'd have company." "And how," I asked calmly, "would I pay for such a place?" Carla's smile sharpened. "Your condo. We spoke with a realtor. He says you could get at least $120,000 for it. That would cover your care for years." She said it as if she'd just solved a math problem. Daniel said nothing. My recorder was capturing every syllable. "You've spoken to a realtor about selling my home," I repeated. "Only to explore options," she said quickly. "Don't get dramatic." Daniel finally looked at me, guilt clouding his face. "We just want you safe, Mom," he said. "No," I said gently. "You want me somewhere you can manage." Carla's expression cracked for 1 second, her real face showing through. "That's unfair," she snapped. "We'd handle everything. Obviously, we'd need you to sign some paperwork, power of attorney and such, but it's just practical." Power of attorney, the real goal. I didn't react. I didn't argue. I didn't give them anything. I simply let her talk. She shifted from gentle persuasion, "Don't you trust us?" to guilt, "We do so much for you," to thinly veiled threats. "If something happens while you live alone, we'll be the ones who have to deal with it." When I refused to agree to anything, her mask slipped completely. "You're being selfish, Margaret," she hissed. "We're drowning in bills while you sit on an asset. Daniel works overtime. I handle everything. The least you could do is not make things harder." "For you," I said. "For everyone," she insisted. "You're going to end up in a home eventually. This way, you get to choose which one." I stood up slowly. "I've chosen," I said. "I'm going home now." Carla jumped up to block me. "We are not done. This is happening whether you like it or not." I looked her straight in the eyes. Not scared, not shaky, just tired of being steamrolled. And in my pocket, the recorder captured her every word. Daniel didn't defend her. He didn't stop her. He didn't help me either.
Silence, his oldest habit, held him hostage. I walked out without another word. They had no idea they'd just buried themselves. That night, alone in my condo, I sent Elena the audio file. She listened to it the very next morning and called me immediately. Her voice was calm but triumphant. "Margaret," she said, "this is more than enough. They've built your case for you." And so the next phase began. For weeks, Elena gathered everything: the receipts, the transfers, the recordings, the financial patterns. She crafted a full timeline, a complete documentation of manipulation, pressure, and attempted control. The trust on my condo was finalized. The legal walls were up. Nothing could be done to me without my consent. But the biggest moment, the moment that would crack everything open, came on Christmas Eve. And that moment would break the entire family open like a rotten walnut. Christmas Eve has a strange way of testing families. Some people come closer, others fall apart. That year, my family did both, sometimes in the same breath. The kids had insisted on spending Christmas with me. They asked their parents, and somehow, Daniel convinced Carla to let them. Or maybe she didn't want them around. Maybe she had her own plans. Either way, I didn't question it. I opened my door, and in tumbled Lily and Ben with their backpacks, their blankets, and the restless energy only children escaping tension can carry. They were quieter than usual, though. More observant, more protective. They didn't say it, but I knew. They didn't want me to be alone on a day that reminded me of everything I'd lost.
We decorated my little artificial tree, the same one I'd been using for 8 years. Lily fussed with the lights, trying to make them sit right. Ben hung ornaments with the seriousness of a man fixing a roof. They wanted everything to feel perfect. Daniel dropped them off. He looked worn out, like someone who had been dragged behind life rather than walking alongside it. "Carla's spending Christmas with her mother," he said, avoiding my eyes. She needed a break." "From what?" I asked softly. He didn't answer. He just looked around the condo, the lights, the kids, the faint smell of cinnamon coming from the kitchen. "Mom," he said quietly, "thank you for letting them stay." As if I'd ever say no. He nodded, swallowed hard, and left without stepping inside. He couldn't face sitting at my table. Not after that recording. Not after hearing his own silence played back to him. That night, the kids slept in my room. They insisted. They said they wanted to make sure I slept well. But I knew the truth. They were worried Carla might show up. The next morning, I woke before dawn. Years of habit, I suppose. I made tea, wrapped myself in my warmest robe, and sat in the living room while the world outside was still cold and blue. I felt a sense of peace, a fragile one, knowing the trust was secured, the legal protections were in place, and the recording had given Elena exactly what she needed. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong. Around 9 in the morning, there was a knock on the door. A firm one. Sharp. Familiar. Lily froze in the middle of tying her shoes. Ben looked at me with wide eyes. I sighed. "Let's see who it is," I said. When I opened the door, Carla stood there, holding a bottle of wine and wearing the fakest holiday smile I had ever seen. "Margaret!" she exclaimed, stepping forward as if we were old friends. "Merry Christmas!" Her eyes darted past me immediately, searching for the chair, searching for signs she had won.
Or maybe searching for cracks she could wedge herself into again. I let her in because I didn't want the kids witnessing a fight in the hallway. They'd already seen enough. She placed the wine on the counter, glanced at my simple decorations, and gave me a smile meant to look gracious, but landed more like condescension. "It looks cozy," she said. "Thank you," I replied calmly. The kids stood near the tree, watching her like two little guard dogs. Carla opened her arms. "Come on, you two. Give your mother a hug." Lily hesitated, but gave a shallow hug. Ben didn't move. That irritated her. Ben always irritated her because she couldn't control him. "So," Carla said brightly, "what's the plan for dinner? What are we all doing today?" "We?" That one word made something cold settle inside me. Before I could respond, there was another knock on the door. This time, it was Daniel, and behind him were two men carrying a familiar shape wrapped in moving blankets. The massage chair. Except this time, it wasn't being rolled out of my home. It was coming back in. Lily gasped. Ben nearly tripped, running forward. "What happened?" I asked, stunned. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, eyes full of shame. "Mom, about the chair. I'm sorry. I should have said something before. It wasn't right. We brought it back. It's yours." "It's only here temporarily," Carla snapped. "Mom didn't want it. She said it didn't fit her living room." Daniel gave her a look, not defiant, but tired. "Carla, please." She scoffed and folded her arms. The delivery men placed the chair gently in its old spot. Ben ran his hand over the leather, as if touching a lost treasure returned. My heart squeezed painfully. I didn't expect the chair back. Not ever. And in truth, I didn't care about the object as much as the meaning. The kids' hard work, their sacrifice, their love. Seeing it back in the room felt like justice had finally remembered me. But what Carla didn't realize was that by bringing the chair back, whether by guilt, pressure, or social appearance, she'd set the perfect stage, the perfect moment, the perfect chance to reveal everything she had done. I looked at the chair, then at the television, then at Carla, who was still complaining under her breath. In that moment, a calm washed over me. I knew exactly what I was going to do. But I would wait. I would let her hang herself with her own words one more time. After all, even the strongest walls fall if you keep tapping the cracks. Christmas continued awkwardly. Carla tried to dominate the room with her usual loud cheerfulness, but the kids stuck close to me. Daniel drifted between conversations, never quite fully present, always half-trapped between guilt and loyalty. By late afternoon, I suggested we all sit down in the living room. The kids curled up beside me. Daniel sat on the couch. Carla grabbed the recliner remote and smiled like she owned the place.
But she didn't notice when I picked up the TV remote. "Before we open presents," I said gently, "there's something we need to watch." Carla turned, frowning.
"Watch? What is this? Some old Christmas tape?"
"Something like that," I said. I pressed play. The TV screen lit up with a simple white title on a black screen. "The Truth About This Year." Carla's smile vanished. "What is this, Margaret?" she asked sharply. I didn't answer. The first slide came up. A bank transfer. $6,000 from my account. A date next to the transfer. Below it, a photo of Carla at a beach resort, posted that same week. Daniel closed his eyes. Lily grabbed my hand. Ben stared at the screen, jaw tight. "What is this supposed to mean?" Carla demanded. The next slide appeared. 3 separate emergency payments I had made, each followed by pictures Carla had posted of spa days, shopping trips, and dinners at expensive restaurants. Carla's face flushed. "This is taken out of context," she barked. Then came the big one. A direct quote from her, transcribed word for word. "You're going to end up in a home anyway. This is happening whether you like it or not." And then the audio began to play. Her voice, sharp, confident, threatening, filled the room. Daniel's head dropped into his hands. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Ben's breathing quickened. Carla jumped up. "Turn that off!" "No," I said softly. The audio kept playing. Her words, her manipulation, her anger, her threats. "You're being selfish, Margaret. We need your condo. Sign the papers. You don't need it anymore. You're old." The air in the room thickened as the truth spread like a stain. No performance could cover it now. Carla rushed to the TV and tried to yank the cable out, but Lily stepped in front of her. "Move," Carla hissed. "No," Lily said, voice trembling but firm. "You don't get to pretend anymore." Carla froze, stunned that a teenager dared to say no to her. The presentation continued. More transfers, more guilt messages, screenshots of her demanding money, and finally, proof of the trust. Legal documentation showing my home was no longer vulnerable to her schemes. When it ended, I picked up the remote and turned off the TV. The room was silent. Daniel finally stood, wiping his face. He looked at me with an expression I'll never forget, a mix of shame, sorrow, and the realization of everything he had allowed by staying silent. "Mom," he whispered, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't realize." "Part of me believes that," I said gently. "But part of me knows you looked away because it was easier." He nodded, tears gathering. Carla, red-faced and furious, pointed at me like I had committed the crime. "You set me up. You tricked me." "No," I said calmly. "I protected myself." "You can't do this!" she yelled. "I already did," I replied. She turned to Daniel, expecting backup. "Say something! Defend me!" But Daniel didn't move. He didn't speak. He didn't lift his eyes. Silence, his lifelong habit, finally landed on the right person. Realizing she had no audience left, Carla grabbed her purse, stomped toward the door, and slammed it behind her so hard the ornaments on the tree rattled. We all sat there breathing the heavy air she left behind. Lily leaned her head against my shoulder. Ben wrapped his arms around my waist. Daniel sank onto the couch, exhausted. For the first time in years, the room felt honest. Not perfect, not healed, but honest. And sometimes honesty is the first real gift a family can give itself. 2 days later, Elena filed the paperwork. Carla tried to fight back. Messages, calls, angry ranting. But she had no ground to stand on. No judge on earth would side with someone recorded threatening to force an elderly woman out of her home for financial gain. The trust held. The protections held. I held. Daniel started therapy. The kids grew more attached to me, not less. The chair stayed exactly where it belonged. Not because of the leather, or the heat, or the massage settings, but because it symbolized something that could never be taken from me again. My right to exist without being controlled. It took me 70 years to stand up fully. And when I finally did, it shook the whole family. Sometimes the quiet ones are the ones who end the storm. And sometimes, all it takes is one stolen share to find your voice again. After Christmas, the house felt different. Not quieter. My home had always been quiet. But lighter, like a window had been cracked open after years of stale air. The kids came by more often, even on school days. They'd sit on the couch doing homework or telling me stories from their week, while the massage chair hummed softly in the background, like a gentle reminder that not everything lost stays lost.
Daniel visited too, but he was different now. Softer, slower, more aware of his own words, as if each sentence could break if he wasn't careful. The shame didn't disappear overnight, and I didn't force him to talk about it. I simply let him sit at my table, drink tea, and breathe in a house where he wasn't being controlled. One afternoon in early January, he knocked on my door. No warning, no text, just a knock. The kind a son makes when he's finally ready to show up. When I opened the door, he was standing there with a manila envelope in his hand. "Can we talk?" he asked. I nodded and let him in. He sat at the table, placed the envelope gently between us, and stared at it like it contained a living thing. "Mom," he said, "I need to tell you something." I waited. He took a shaky breath. "That night, when you came for dinner, when Carla talked about selling your condo, I knew she'd been thinking about it for a long time. She brought it up before. She even talked to a realtor without telling me." I didn't interrupt him. I let him speak. Let the truth come out the way it had been trapped inside him. "She wore me down," he whispered. "Every day, every argument, every guilt trip. She kept saying we were drowning in debt, that we needed solutions, that you would understand. And I kept agreeing, or at least not disagreeing hard enough." His voice cracked. "I thought staying quiet was easier, but it only made everything worse." I looked at my son, my quiet, gentle, worn-down son, and for the first time, I saw the child he used to be. The boy who hid behind me when his father shouted. The boy who learned that silence was safer than truth. "Daniel," I said softly, "I know how hard it is to unlearn fear, but silence helped her hurt all of us." He nodded, tears spilling this time. "I know, and I'm trying. I'm going to therapy. I'm learning how to speak for myself, for the kids, for you." "And for you," I added. He looked up, surprised. "You deserve a voice too," I said. "You deserved one even as a boy." He swallowed hard, wiped his eyes, and pushed the envelope toward me. "What's this?" I asked. "Proof," he said, "of everything she hid. Credit card statements, loans she took out, purchases she made, things she kept from me. I don't want you to fight this alone, and I don't want to be the man who lets this happen again." I opened the envelope slowly. Inside were pages of transactions. Thousands spent on trips, clothes, gadgets, beauty treatments, all while she blamed me for her financial stress. It wasn't shocking. It wasn't surprising. But it was validating. "Thank you," I said. He nodded again. "I'm sorry it took a recording for me to wake up." "Sometimes," I said, "people don't hear the truth
until it's played back to them. He let out a small laugh, sad but real. And for the first time in a long time, I believed he might find his way again. When he left that day, I sat alone with the envelope. I didn't know where things were heading with Carla. Divorce, separation, reconciliation. That was Daniel's battle, not mine. But one thing had changed permanently. I wasn't part of the battlefield anymore. Carla could no longer touch my home, my finances, or my peace. And that security gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Not the dramatic kind you read in novels, the small, practical kind. The freedom to sleep without worry. The freedom to buy groceries without checking bank balances to see who I'd bailed out that week. The freedom to say no. The freedom to exist without guilt hanging over me. It felt like learning to breathe again. Winter softened into early spring. The snow started melting from the sidewalks, and the sky shifted from gray to pale blue. I found myself walking more, drinking tea in the morning sun, and sitting in the massage chair in the evenings, letting its steady rhythm unwind years of tightness in my spine. One afternoon, while the kids were at school and Daniel was at therapy, my phone buzzed. Unknown caller. I prouted, but something told me to answer. Hello? A familiar, sharp voice cut through the line. So this is how you treat family, Carla said, her tone dripping with accusation. I spending clinch. Not anymore. What do you want? I asked, voice calm. You turned Daniel against me, she snapped. You embarrassed me. You recorded me without warning. You spoiled my husband's loyalty. I unconcerned laughed at that last one. Loyalty wasn't something you could sleep. It was something freely given, of vertical, because Trollways think words eyes the art they autumn, speaking the urn. Carla, I said, you turned everyone against yourself. You think you've won? She hissed. You think you're safe? You think you're smarter than me? I think, I replied slowly, that of Biden being afraid of you. There was a long pause on the other end, the stunned silence of someone who had never been spoken to that way by the person they controlled. You'll regret this, she finally spat. I'm not done. And she hung up. I leaned back in the chair, breathing steadily. Her threat didn't shake me. It didn't even sting. It felt more like the last echo of a storm that had already passed. When the kids came over that weekend, they noticed immediately that something felt different. You look happier, Lily said. I feel lighter, I replied. Is it the chair? Ben teased, trying to lift the mood. Partly, I said, pulling him close, but mostly it's the peace. We spent that evening watching an old movie, the kind with slow pacing and gentle music, the kind you can only appreciate once you've lived long enough to cherish quiet moments. The three of us curled up together, and for the first time in months, I fell asleep on the couch without a single knot of fear in my stomach. But peace is not permanent. It needs maintenance. It needs boundaries. And the next shift in this family came from a place I didn't expect. Daniel returned to therapy weekly. He showed up to my house more often. He cooked dinner with the kids. He talked. Real talking, not the brief, shallow sentences he'd lived inside for years. And slowly, his relationship with his children began to strengthen. They trusted him more. They leaned on him more. They talked to him more openly. But that change became a threat to Carla. And that's when she began pushing harder. One evening, Daniel arrived looking defeated. He sat at my kitchen table, staring at his hands. Mom, he said quietly, Carla wants the kids back full-time. She says you're influencing them too much.
I raised an eyebrow. Influencing them how? He shook his head. That's the thing. She couldn't even explain it. She just kept saying they act differently after being here, more confident, more outspoken. That made me smile. Of course they do, I said. I listen to them. He nodded slowly. Carla hates that. I know. She wants them at her mother's house more often, he added. She thinks her mother will undo whatever you're doing. Undo confidence, undo peace, undo safety. It made perfect sense for someone like Carla. What do you want? I asked. Daniel looked up at me, really looked, and I saw a man waking up from years of fog. I want the kids to have stability, he said, and they feel safest here, with you. I touched his hand. Then fight for that. I'm trying, he whispered, but every time I push back, she pushes harder. And every time she pushes harder, I said gently, you get a little stronger. He nodded, absorbing that. Sometimes the quietest truth hits the deepest. Over the next weeks, a quiet battle formed, not with shouting or slamming doors, but with schedules, visitations, manipulations, and small acts of resistance. Carla tried to isolate the kids. Daniel pushed back. The kids voiced themselves more clearly, and through all of it, I stayed steady. Not controlling, not interfering. Steady. The trust in my name, the papers secure, the boundaries firm, the backbone solid. One night, Lily said something that broke my heart wide open. Grandma, she whispered as we folded blankets on the couch, I hope I grow up to be like you. I paused. Like me, how? You're not scared anymore, she said, and I want to be brave like that. I hugged her so tightly, I felt her heart beat against mine. You are, I said. You just don't know it yet. Because bravery isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It isn't always pretty. Sometimes bravery is a grandmother standing up for herself for the first time at 70. Sometimes bravery is a teenage girl stepping in front of her mother to protect a TV screen revealing the truth. Sometimes bravery is a boy clenching his fists and saying, this is wrong, even when he's afraid. Bravery, I learned, is choosing yourself even when someone else taught you to disappear. And that lesson was only beginning to ripple through our family. By February, Carla's facade was cracking. Her social media grew quiet. Her smile, once polished and bright, became tight and forced. She started posting vague quotes about betrayal and loyalty, clearly aimed at Daniel and at me. People like her cannot survive without an audience, and she was losing hers. But the real turning point came on a cold Friday evening. The doorbell rang. When I opened it, Daniel stood there alone, shoulders slumped, eyes tired. Mom, he said softly. She left. My heart dropped. Where did she go? To her mother's, he said. She took her clothes, her makeup, some jewelry, and she left a note. He handed me the paper. One sentence. Sharp, cool, predictable. Maybe now you and your mother can be happy together. I folded the note slowly. Are you all right? He let out a long, hollow breath.
I don't know, he said. But for the first time, I think I will be. We sat there at the table, tea growing cold between us, and for the first time in years, the house didn't feel heavy. It didn't feel like a battlefield or a burden. It felt open. The kids arrived soon after, unsure at first, then slowly leaning into the quiet, into the safety that had been missing for so long. We talked that night, not about everything we'd lost, but about everything we could still build. A life without whispering, without walking on eggshells, without pretending. And as the house settled into its late evening stillness, I realized something simple and powerful.
Carla leaving wasn't the beginning of destruction. It was the beginning of space. Space to breathe. Space to heal. Space to grow in ways we forgot we were allowed to. The real rebuilding didn't happen in dramatic moments. It happened in small ones. Lily laughing again, then asking questions again. Daniel showing up again. It happened in the mornings when I reminded myself that I was more than the years I spent swallowing my own voice. I am 70. My knees ache, my back protests, but my heart finally feels light. And if you are listening to this, wherever you are, whatever age you are, hear me clearly. You are never too old, or too tired, or too worn down to choose yourself. Sometimes it takes one cruel note. Sometimes it takes one line you refuse to accept. Sometimes it takes finally seeing what you've allowed for too long. But the moment you say, no more, the moment you stop apologizing for existing, that's the moment your life begins again. Peace isn't handed to people like us. We earn it. We guard it. And once it's finally ours, we don't let anyone take it away, ever again.
If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Echo Lens Stories. Tell me where you're listening from, and share this with someone who needs it.